Hey Chaotic Crew, Brian here, and we've once again got another Precon upgrade for you. This time we're looking at the Lorwyn Eclipsed Dance of the Elements Precon. Now before we get too far into this, I want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Manapool. It's a fast-growing marketplace for Magic the Gathering that makes buying and selling cards easy. Their optimizer helps you get the best value when buying cards, and the team is focused on making it a great experience for buyers and sellers alike. Really enjoyed my time using Manapool, and big shout out to them for helping out the channel. So if you want to pick up any of the 15 cards they're going to be putting into this precon, make sure to check out the affiliate link in our description below. If you're interested in winning a free Dance of the Elements precon or the alternative Blight Curse precon, make sure to check out our previous precon upgrade on that one, and make sure to leave a comment on this video as far as like what your favorite elemental is in Magic the Gathering. Chances are it's probably going to be really great in this pre-constructed deck. Once you've commented on both videos, subscribe to the channel, make sure to become a channel member so you get an extra entry into those giveaways. On January 30th, that's 2 Fridays from this video's release, we're going to be going live on our Twitch stream, 9 p.m., twitch.tv/chaoticcommandermtg will announce the winners then, so make sure to set an alarm on your calendar and make sure you check us out. Then we'll announce those winners and get those over to you as soon as possible. But without further ado, Dance of the Elements Precon is a new 5-color pre-constructed deck from Wizards of the Coast. It's really focusing on Elemental Kindred. Right, it's got this main commander here, Ashling the Limitless, so 2 in a red for an Elemental Sorcerer, and Ashling's a 2/3, gives elemental spells you cast from your hand evoke 4. So evoke is an alternative casting cost, and when it enters the battlefield, a trigger goes in the stack to sacrifice the creature that was evoked. Evoke creatures typically have great enter the battlefield triggers that you want to get for cheaper with that evoke, but Ashling's great because the second ability says whenever you sacrifice a non-token elemental, create a token that's a copy of it. The token gains haste until the end of turn. At the beginning of your next end step, sacrifice it unless you pay Wooburg. So essentially it'll sacrifice at the end of your turn, but you essentially get a second enter the battlefield trigger and you can attack with it that turn. So really, really good there. The alternate commander of the deck, Mass of Mysteries, is Wooburg for, a 5/5 elemental, first strike, vigilance, and trample. Beginning of combat on your turn, another target elemental you control gains Myriad until end of turn. And if you don't know what Myriad does, it says that whenever that creature attacks, each opponent other than defending player, you may create a token copy that's tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker their control. Exile the tokens at end of combat. So you're getting a bunch more into the battlefield triggers. Now, it doesn't give them haste, so they need to be already on the battlefield. This deck is casting a lot of high mana value elementals, so Massive Mysteries I think works really well if you can get some cheaper ones out first and then maybe give it Myriad, have some later ones later in the game and give it haste, whereas Ashling gives the creatures you're casting haste and cheapens the massive cost. So I think we're going to be running with Ashling as the commander here. So as usual, we're taking 15 cards out, we're putting 15 cards in, and I'll give you a brief overview on the deck and how it operates as well. But looking at what Wizards is actually putting in the deck, right? We talked about Ashling, we talked about Massive Mysteries. Next is a new card, Jubilation, and let's zoom in a little bit here. So Jubilation is a new card, and it's a 5/5 for 6 mana. Whenever it enters, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. So right with your commander, you can evoke this out. It'll enter, sacrifice itself, give all your creatures +2/+2 and trample, and then the token that comes back will give your creatures another +2/+2 and trample, including itself. So really going to be massively buffing your board there. It also has Encore for 7 and 2 green. Encore, you exile the card from your graveyard, pay the cost, and for each opponent, you create a token that attacks that opponent this turn if able, and they gain haste, and you sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So really great there. You can get potentially 3 of these if you still have 3 opponents. So 3 +2/+2, so it's +6/+6 for all your creatures. That's a game winner right there. Another new card, Impulsivity, 7 mana for a 7/5. By the way, they're going to have one of these for each color, these Encore high-cost elemental incarnations. Impulsivity is great because when it enters, you may cast an instant or sorcery from a graveyard without paying its mana cost. If it would be put into a graveyard, exile instead. So this is fantastic if your opponent's been, has some spot removal or maybe even a board wipe that you want to copy. Impulsivity is great at that. Maybe some card draw or some ramp, who knows. Lamentation's great. It's the same Encore in black, and this time when it enters, you're going to destroy a creature an opponent controls and gain 3 life. So really fantastic here to get 1 or 2 of these in a turn. Get rid of the 2 most problematic things on the board. Gain 6 life. It works really well with the commander here. Belonging is the white version for 6 mana. It's a 6/6, and when it enters, you make 3 1/1 shapeshifters with Changeling. So you do get 3 of any creature type, so really neat, and maybe some undersupported tribes or kindred decks, right? But in elementals, I don't think it's really doing a whole lot for us here. Subterfuge is the blue elemental incarnation that has Encore, and when it enters, target creature gains flying, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards until end of turn. So this can help you refill your hand really fast here. Also in the deck, Endurance, which is really great at getting rid of someone's graveyard to help against these graveyard decks that really care about that. Fury's fantastic to remove some creatures. It's also has double strike if you can buff it up. Pretty solid there. Avenger of Zendikar is neat. It is an elemental, but it makes plants for each land you control when it enters. Obviously, with your commander evoking this out and getting a token copy, going to make twice as many plants, and then when you get lands, they can be putting +1/+1 counter on each plant you control. Cavalier of Thorns is neat, 5/6 for reach. When it enters, you reveal the top 5 cards of your library, put a land from among them on the battlefield, and the rest into your graveyard. So it's ramping you, which is nice, and filling your graveyard if you like that. And when it dies, you may exile it. If you do, put another target creature from your graveyard on top of your library. So it's going to enter, mill 5, then it's going to sacrifice itself if you evoked it, and maybe grab one of the creatures you milled back on top of your library. So pretty neat there. Green Warden of Marasa is fantastic, 6 mana elemental. When it enters and when it dies, you can return things from your graveyard to your hand. So really solid there. Selvala, Heart of the Wilds is an interesting draw here. It's an elf scout for 3 mana. It's 2/3. When a creature enters, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other's creature's power. So obviously we're going to have some high power cards on the board, but maybe this could help our opponents out too. But what's great is Selvala can add a ton of mana in any combination of colors, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So really solid there to mana fix you and get what you need there. Titan Ministry, forgot this was an elemental. Great into the battlefield trigger. Gets rid of artifacts and enchantments like that. You can gain life, you can make tokens from it, you can even give any creature shield counters, which aren't amazing, but don't do nothing, right? So really solid here to have in the deck with a reach and trample on it as well. Muldrotha is fantastic. As you are, sacrificing your main elementals, you can cast them back out for their, actual mana value. Now, worth noting that Ashling only gives the elementals from your hand evoke, so you can't cast them from your graveyard with evoke with Muldrotha. That's just not going to work. But a man can dream, can't he? Omnath Locus of Rage is interesting, 7 mana for a 5/5, and don't really care much about the first ability. Whenever a land you control enters, you make a 5/5 elemental. But the other ability is really great. Whenever Omnath or another elemental you control dies, Omnath deals 3 damage to any target. So this is actually really great. We're losing creatures left and right? We're sacrificing creatures left and right, and Omnath is going to be able to point that damage in any direction. So I was actually first, when I saw this, was like, this isn't that great in here. But now that I'm looking at it again, it's like, oh, this is a really good top end. So really solid there. Yarick the Desecrated, just fantastic for this deck. It's an elemental, and it's essentially Panharmonicon on a stick. So of course you need to have it in here. Omnath Locus of the Royal is Teamer Omnath, and when it enters, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of elementals you control. So with itself, it'll be at least 1, but it can be more than that and can deal, get rid of a creature. Who knows? And then when a land you control enters, you can get counters on your creatures, plus you can draw cards from it. So really, really good to have here. Slither Muse is interesting. It pretty much makes it so that you can refill your hand after just, casting all your spells. So Slither Muse is really great here. Bane of Progress is interesting. Destroys all artifacts and enchantments. So it does hit all of ours as well. We do have a few that we care about. So it is a bit, double-edged sword right there, but it can be really strong against some of these artifact and enchantment decks. Realmwalker, fantastic. It is an elemental, and you can cast elementals from the top of your deck. Reminder that Ashling won't give them Evoke, but still really good card advantage here. Fabro Elder isn't an elemental, but is great ramp, right? You will get tap it for mana for each color among permanents you control, and it also gets buffed for each color among permanents you control. Vernal Sovereign is whenever a creature enters or attacks, you make a green and white elemental creature token with this token's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures that you control. So as this keeps entering, dying, token entering and dying, and then the token attacking, you're going to be making 3 of those tokens in one turn with your commander out. So very, very good to have those there. Horde of Notions, classic elemental commander. Some of the old school OGs that I'm aware of were there when Horde of Notions was first released, and really cool 5-color commander. And works really well with elementals, being able to play them from your graveyard without paying their mana cost, which it is casting them, so that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, good to know there. Maelstrom Wanderer is good to have in the deck. Cascade is okay. Right, we do have a lot of expensive spells that this could get on to, which would be great, but I think we really love this for the creatures you control of haste, and if we can get this on the board with a bunch of other elementals at the same time, I think we're in pretty great shape to maybe kill someone. So yeah, good card here. Gigantha, the Wellspring. 5 mana for an elemental elk. It's not going to be our companion, but we can tap it, add Wooburg, and it can't be spent to pay generic mana cost. So, interesting card here. I think there's a bunch of multi-green spells, so he very much stops us from using Gigantha as our companion, but could be a fun workaround if you wanted to build the deck that way. Muldrifter, just going to draw us 2 cards when it enters and can evoke itself. Shriek Mod destroys a non-black creature. Shimmer Creep, really neat. When it enters, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. I wasn't that hot on this when I saw it, but it is actually really strong. You do want some incremental life gain in your deck. And because your commander is going to be getting another token of it, you're going to get it twice X, which is pretty neat, right? You're typically going to have, I would say 3 colors on average at any given point. So Shimmer Creep being able to give you 6 life and have each opponent lose 6 life is actually a pretty big swing. Flame Braider is fantastic, and I'll put Smoke Braider in here too, because they both add 2 mana in any combination of colors to cast elemental spells or activate abilities of elementals. The only difference is that they're printed in different sets. One's a 2/2 and one's a 1/1, but they do really great things. Incandescent Soulstoke, is a lord for your elementals, but then also gives you sort of a sneak attack for your elementals, where you can put it on the battlefield from your hand, give it haste, and sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So pretty neat to get some of your bigger elementals on the board for free without your commander. Eclipsed Flamekin, a newer card from the set, and when it enters, you go to the top 4 cards of your library. You can reveal an elemental, island, or mountain card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, in a random order. Typically, you're going to use this to get more creatures back, right up, so you can continue to cast more, but maybe need some land every now and then, who knows. Foundation Breaker destroys artifacts and enchantments and evokes itself, which is great. Risen Reef will ramp you whenever it or another elemental enters, so going to be really strong here. And then Ingot Chewer can destroy artifacts, so really solid. Elemental Spectacle is a newer card and has Vivid. Create a number of 5/5 red and green elementals equal to the number of colors among permanents you control. Then you gain life equal to the number of creatures you control. So max, this is 6 mana for 5/5/5 elementals, and then you will gain 5 life at max. Worst case, it's 6 mana for a 1/5/5 and you gain 1 life, right? So big ceiling, low floor. Haunting Voyage is next. Really great in this deck. Choose a creature type, return up to 2 creature cards of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it was foretold, though, you return all creature cards of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield instead. And if we have Maelstrom Wanderer on the field or in the graveyard, when we cast this, it's going to give all our creatures haste, and that's how we're going to probably win the game here. But we're really strong in this deck for sure. Shadow of the Sky is just a board wipe and can let people draw cards. Blasphemous Act, you know that. Distant Melody will draw us cards equal to a number of elementals we control. Kodama's Reach and Cultivate, great ramp spells, so not bad there. We have a few enchantments to go over. Springleaf Parade is a new one. 2 green and an X. Whenever this enchantment enters, you make X 1/1 shapeshifters with Changeling, which is really great for a lot of decks that care about tokens or just care about, tribal and green in general. And it also makes creature tokens you control tap for 1 mana of any color. So really strong there. Probably best in maybe Chatterfang, I'm thinking. Maybe not the best in this deck. Hoofprints of the Stag is neat too. Whenever you draw a card, you put a counter on it, and you can remove 4 counters to make a 4/4 elemental with flying. So some good flying blockers. Maybe don't have a lot of flying elementals, so good to have that. Descendant's Fury, 4 mana. Whenever one or more creatures you control do a combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice one of them. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type, and put that card on the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's great because you're going to be sacrificing these tokens at the end step anyways, and you're going to be able to, instead of sacrificing them at the end step to their own ability, get free value with Descendant's Fury. Cream of the Crop is also newer. Whenever a creature you control enters, you may look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's power. If you do, put one of those cards on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is just like Abundance almost, where you can choose the next card, whether it's going to be a land or not. Pretty neat whenever you just have a lot of creatures. You can filter through your deck really fast with this. It can be very strong in the right shell. Garrett's Uprising, fantastic, giving your creatures trample. Whenever a creature with power 4 greater enters, you'll draw a card, and so this helps keep the funnel going. We'll get into that a bit later, but this is a really strong card here. Fertile Ground is a great ramp spell. Pretty much lets an enchanted land tap for an additional mana of any color, so great to have that. And then Abundant Growth lets any land tap for any color, and when it enters, you draw a card, so not bad. 40 lands. They do have these 2 new Forest Islands in the deck, which is pretty neat. Abundant Countryside to cast a mana of any color for a creature. There's a couple of those cards. Primal Beyond is great for elementals, so love that. And then Ancient Ziggurat's a great reprint. Also casts mana of any color for creatures. Lots of creatures. This deck has 36 creatures in it at baseline, so pretty neat there. But I will say 40 lands is a bit much. We also have a few artifacts and instants to get to. Timeless Lotus is an interesting card. I guess in a Pentacolor deck, just going to shoehorn this in as a reprint. Don't really need it in here, but not a bad card. Chromatic Lantern's great to help get whatever colors you need. You'll notice that a lot of the elementals themselves, most of them aren't multicolored. They're like single colored or monocolored, sorry. Yeah, Soul Ring is interesting to have here. 2, never bad. Arcane Signet and Felwar Stone are fantastic in 5-color decks. Kindred Summons, another way to sort of win the game if you have Maelstrom Wanderer out, to get a bunch of elementals out and then go to town. Return of the Wild Speaker can buff all your board or draw you a bunch of cards. Path to Exile, Reality Shift, and Crib Swap are just great removal here. So this deck really wants to be playing elementals, sacrificing them, getting new elementals out, returning stuff back from your graveyard, right? There's a lot of things that go into that, which is why I think Ashling is the better card here to run the deck. Let's go into the 15 cards we're taking out and the 15 cards we're putting in, starting with Avenger of Zendikar. Now, like I said, it's a good elemental with a great end of the battlefield trigger, but it's making plants, and then you don't really get to do a whole lot with those plants. They're just blockers. So they could be useful, they could not be useful. Who knows? Bane of Progress. We do have a lot of enchantments and artifacts that we care about, and, well, not a lot, but enough to where I really don't like playing Bane of Progress if it destroys some of our amazing enchantments. Now, you could argue that, you play this when you have to, when you feel like all your opponent stuff is going overboard, and to that I'll say fair point. You have a couple other cards here that get rid of, those kind of permanents, so not the most important thing, but I would say this is the card I'm most on the fence about taking out. Belonging, though, I'm not on the fence about that. Definitely take Belonging out. It is really only giving you 3 1/1s. Not helpful at all. Cavalier Thorns is interesting. I wanted to keep it in at first because it is ramping you, but I hate that it mills you for 5, and then you can't really do a whole lot to reimburse those cards. You might be milling some of your really important card pieces here. And we kind of are going into a bit of a combo strategy with the cards we're putting in, and I didn't want Cavalier Thorns to end up milling one of our combo pieces. So even though it could potentially put it back on top of the library, it's really not worth it for me, in my opinion. Gigantha the Wellspring, really not doing a whole lot here. It's just a 5 mana dork in this deck, and it's not really that great, right? We don't really need Wooburg. You can't use the Wooburg to pay generic mana cost, so Gigantha isn't really doing anything here. So taking that out. And then Selvala is a great card, but in a format that's constantly getting power crept. We do not have the most power on board. We don't. There's going to be some other player who's playing big stompy and is going to be able to draw more cards off of Selvala than us. And we may be able to add like 5 mana with Selvala or whatever, 7 mana maybe, but it's really not that worth it. Yeah, so that's why I took her out. Distant Melody, we already have a bunch of card draw on the deck. We're going to add a couple more pieces, and don't really need this massive card draw type for so much mana investment. Elemental Spectacle we took out as well, just because, you know, at max you're getting 5 colors, and if we had a commander that was 5 colors, like if we were running the 5-color commander of the deck, maybe, but because most of our cards actually aren't multicolored, you have to have a lot of setup for Elemental Spectacle to even work at all. So taking that card out here. Shadow of the Sky, also not a great board wipe, so sure, it'll draw us a card maybe within destroy all creatures, but it'll draw our opponent's cards too. It's really not worth it. We talked about Timeless Lotus, doesn't really do a whole lot for this. All these cards that tap for Wooburg don't do anything except to fuel the game plan of Ashling to not sacrifice the token, but I actually want to lean more into that with the deck. I think that makes it stronger than trying to compensate for having to get rid of those tokens. Abundant Growth I took out as well. It doesn't ramp us, it just fixes us, and I don't really love that. I'd rather have ramp in the deck. Hoofprints of the Stag, best thing it can do for us is give us flyers, but it really, like, it does not matter. And then Springleaf Parade does ramp us out a little bit, but we have to pay 4 mana to get 2 mana dorks, and at that point, I'd rather be playing more valuable spells than just a 4 mana get 2 mana dorks spell. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really do much for us. We don't care about summoning more elementals. It doesn't help us out in any way. And then took out 2 lands, just 2 lands that are slow and are tapped, and they don't really do a whole lot for us. Now, cards we're putting in, like I said, we're going to be making it a bit more combo-y. So part of that is that the evoke cost is an alternate cost to cast your spells. So if you can reduce the cost of your elementals, then you're reducing the evoke cost as well. So Animar is a great way to do that here. Animar is an elemental, has protection from white and black, which is great. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Animar, and then he makes creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on him. So he can potentially make all the spells you're evoking cost 0 mana. So Animar really is a fantastic card for the deck to continue to keep churning out these big elementals, and that's why I said Garruk's Uprising was so important, because if you can continue playing a bunch of big creature spells and drawing a bunch of cards, and you can continue to evoke them out for free, you just have this massive board state that you end up being able to do so much in one turn and potentially kill someone or the whole table. Who knows? But yeah, Animar really great to have. Probably the best card to add in the deck to really make this a very, very scary deck. Base of the Bounding Spring is also great, right? As an elemental, it's fantastic, but it has so many enter the battlefield triggers, right? You make treasure tokens, or you gain life, or you make blue fish, which are good blockers, or you draw cards. So, and it's if any opponent has more cards, or any opponent has more life, or any opponent has more lands, so can really get multiple of those, even though you are getting the double ETB, right? Could potentially serve you pretty well. Birds of Paradise I added just as a 1 mana dork, right? The 1 mana spells like Utopia Sprawl, Birds of Paradise, really great in decks, especially if your commander costs 3 mana. Getting your commander out a turn early is so great, and just being able to help with that is awesome. Going along with Animar, I'm including Bright Hearth Banneret, which makes elemental and warrior spells we play cost 1 less. So really great to make sure that we're evoking for 3 instead of 4. So really solid there. Also helps make our commander cost 1 less when it dies, inevitably, because this might be getting targeted a couple times. From the main set, the mythic dual side of Eridu and Isilu we're putting in. And Eridu Caridon works pretty okay. You have to cast it on this side first. It's a 5/5 flying lifelinker for 5. Gives your creature spells Convoke. Okay, we have a couple cards that make tokens. That's not terrible. But it helps us be able to maybe cast stuff and use those tokens instead of attacking people to maybe cast more things, which is nice. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay black if you do transform Eridu into Isilu, and this is the better side for us, I would say. Still 5/5 flying lifelinker, but it gives each other non-token creature we control persist, which means when they die, if they had no -1/-1 counters on it, we return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. So as we're evoking out our elementals, right, they get the ETB trigger, they sacrifice, then we get a token with Ashling, and we get the original one back on the battlefield as well with the -1/-1 counter on it, so we get 2 more ETB triggers. So we're getting an additional one for every single time we do that with Isilu. So really strong there. Another game ender here, Rumbleweed, 10 of anything and a green, but it costs 1 less for each land card in your graveyard, so I guess not terrible, but we're going to be evoking this out, is really why we have this. 8/8 with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample, and when it enters, other creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain Trample until end of turn. Now what's great about Jubilation is, it's great, but it only does +2/+2. This is +3/+3, which, doubled obviously with the ability is +6/+6. So really, really strong here. Having multiple of those abilities is fantastic, just to be able to punch in and make it so you're not as worried, right, that you're going to be having maybe if you cast it, you can't kill somebody quite yet, but you can do a lot of damage. Hey, we have some other cards like this in the deck. Shroud Stomper is great. When it enters or attacks, each opponent loses 2 life. We gain 2 life and draw a card. So this will replace itself and is going to life drain our opponents. So really fantastic work here. Sunderflock from the main set is one of the better cards, right? We took out that board wipe, Shadow of the Sky, but Sunderflock is really good. It's 7 of anything and 2 blue, but it costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest mana value among elementals you control. That also goes to its evoke cost, right? So it's probably going to cost 0 to evoke it. And when it enters, if you cast it, you return all non-elemental creatures to their owner's hands. So just really busted, 0 mana, mass exodus for all these non-elementals. And yeah, just really, really strong for this deck. A good game ender too. And then Temur Battlecry is the last creature, right? It's going to make spells we cast cost 1 less for each creature we control of power 4 or greater. Itself is 4 or greater, so it's not an elemental per se, but as we get more creatures on the board with power 4 or greater, the evoke spells are going to cost 1 less. So that's really, really strong here. We do want some more graveyard synergy, so I did add Victimize, right? We can sacrifice one of the creatures that are going to be sacrificed anyways and maybe get 2 really strong elementals out of our graveyard. I also added Herald's Horn. It's incremental card draw and makes our elementals cost 1 less, so really great there. And then for enchantments, we have 4 of them. Up the Beanstalk is fantastic, right? It replaces itself immediately, but also as we cast these really big elementals for their evoke cost, we draw cards. So kind of working in tandem with Garruk's Uprising to get us a bunch of value there. River Tear's Ascendancies is fantastic because when you sacrifice a creature, you may return another target creature with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped once each turn. So great to get some of that incremental value as we continue to sacrifice our elementals. Renewed Solidarity is great. Obviously, we're going to choose elementals, and it's going to buff them up. For each token of the chosen type that entered, we make a token that's a copy of it at each end step. So, amazing card for us here, just to get more, stable board state, right? Having those tokens stay on the board, but also get more and more of those abilities. And then Industrial Advancement, another way to sacrifice one of these tokens that's going to sacrifice itself anyways, and get a ton of value off of it just because mana value is a copyable trait. So yeah, that's it. That's the cards we're taking out, the cards we're putting in. It's going to make Ashling into this really fearsome really strong commander, and I've talked. Most of my friend group is probably more excited about this deck than they are the Blight Curse Precon. But either way, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below who your favorite elemental card is in Magic the Gathering. And I have to say, you know, with all the talk about it, I have to say Maelstrom Wanderer is what's doing it for me. Really a fun card. As a big stompy guy, I just love it. But let me know what yours is in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure to become a channel member so you get an extra entry into the giveaway. And that way, in 2 weeks, when we do the giveaway announcement on our Twitch stream, right, Friday, January 30th at 9 p.m. Central, and that is, of course, on twitch.tv/chaoticCommanderMTG. We'll be announcing the winners there. Don't miss that, and make sure to stay tuned for our future deck techs and precon upgrades. Y'all take care. Have a good one.